And we're live. Welcome back to the Loopcast. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today I'm joined by Josh Mercer. And are you known as Tinfoil Tom now? Is that your new street name?
Apparently among some of our colleagues in the Wolfgangs of the world, which is a few hundred people up in Connecticut.
I guess that's the dangerous part about going all prop comedy is that kind of becomes your thing and you can't really break free from that bubble. Like people are just going to
that's why I think Robin Williams never made it big.
Yeah, that's true. But we're joined by Tom McCluskey today, bringing the humor with him for sure. And we have a nice rundown of Friday stories to go through with everyone. So if you want to help out the program, leave a like on this video. Say what's up to us in the chat. We are live 11 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So first story we have, well, there's a lot of ways. Josh, what were you going to say?
I don't know. The whole purpose is like, you like to have everything perfectly manicured, and I just need to get you off your perfection here and trip you up. And I'm
trying to run the show, Josh.
That's my goal here to kind of get you off track. So
okay, well, do you have something that you'd like to trip me up with, or is that just?
I mean, I think we should do. We should include a little segment from the readers, like reader mail. Did you see the one that came in yesterday or whatever was this?
Which one?
Well, this person's. I think it was kind of a neat little story. Like this person wrote in and said their granddaughter heard a girl in her class was telling everyone she wanted to be called a guy's name now, since she was going to become a boy. This is like an. I think
that was Loop Mail, so that wasn't Loopcast, but yeah, that was a good story.
Yeah, well, whatever. Loopcast, that's all my thing. Whatever. So she asked me,
your thing, Josh.
Yeah, exactly. So she asked, this is the grandparent talking. She asked me what she should say, and I gave her two options. Number one, I respect you too much to lie to you or to help you lie to yourself, or I like you too much to encourage something that isn't going to make you happy. Well, long story short, the girl's mother demanded my granddaughter be disciplined. The principal, here's where it gets interesting, praised my granddaughter for her kind reply and the girl's mother. We believe in free speech here, and your daughter brought the subject up to her, and she is free to reply however she sees fit. I suggest if you don't believe in free speech, you take your daughter out of this school.
This was Texas, right?
Yeah, it's a charter school in Texas. I was like, whoa.
Okay.
Wow.
Can you do the background a little bit more, though? Because I'm confused. This was a grandmother emailed the Loop.
Yeah, she's writing in and she's talking about this experience that her granddaughter's like, how do I respond to this? But my fellow student that's announcing that they're transitioning their gender, and demanding that they be addressed in their new name and all this other new identity, and the granddaughter's asking her grandma, how do I deal with this? How should I respond? And I think the grandmother gave a really good, loving, Christian, truth-based response, not in your face, not gotcha. It was true charity, but charity in truth, and that's what Benedict always talked about.
And the mom,
charity in truth.
So the grandmother was looking for suggestions, and the mom was not on board with.
Well, she's talking about the kid's mom.
The other kid's mom.
The other kid's mom. The transitioning kid's mom was like, wait a minute, you can't talk to my daughter, son, whatever, like this. And the principal was like, actually, the response was actually very nice. It wasn't rude. It wasn't evil. It was just free speech. And if you don't like free speech, you can leave.
Yeah.
Whoa. That was something to see. I thought that was pretty interesting. But I think it goes to show a lot of our audience in both the Loopcast and also the Loop, they're looking for ways to respond to the challenges of our day. They don't want to it's not just like gotcha lib stuff. It's not in your face, smash mouth kind of stuff. It's, hey, these are real issues, real people, 8th graders. And they want a way to respond, with love, but also with truth. And I thought this grandmother, the advice she gave to her granddaughter was absolutely spot on. So kudos to her. And we're blessed with just an outstanding Loopcast audience as well as the Loop audience. So anyway.
And to all our listeners, we hope you enjoy our new Dear Josh segment of the show. If you write in, have any problems.
We need like a cool cartoon of Josh. Actually, we do have one.
Wait, we're not looking at one now?
No, this is real Josh.
Hey, don't trust dear Abby. I'm not too shabby. Dear Josh.
That's marketing, baby.
Dr. Laura's just a horror. Horror.
And we're live. Have you guys seen the Michael Knowles thing he does when he goes and gives speeches? He goes like crossing the picket line, basically. Are you familiar?
Do tell.
Quick summary. Basically, he goes and he speaks, and of course, he's protested everywhere he goes. And he invites people that either attended the speech or maybe couldn't even get into the speech, but were just there protesting his presence, just to kind of hear their perspective, have a conversation, and then he records it, puts it on YouTube. It's actually really interesting. I've watched the last couple.
Man of the people, huh?
Yeah. But he's very well mannered. Like he's kind of charming. Some people might consider it smarmy. I don't know. I'm a fan. I think it's cool, but it's kind of like hard to get mad at him almost. So like when he has these interactions with protesters, they kind of see like, how could I, who's this guy, this evil caricature that was told to me by the media. And he's
got that verve, that mirth.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really admirable. But he had one kid on and he just genuinely seemed confused. Like it kind of reminded me of that conversation of like, I think there's more people out there that are probably just confused, want to be a good person, and don't really have any strong influence in their life of like, hey, this is probably how you should think about it, or kind of dove in critically. And so he was having this conversation with the kid. It kind of reminded me of what you just said of like, I'm trying to figure out my own worldview right now. I'm in college. And then Michael, of course, gave a very principled, historical context answer to everything he was saying. And I think we underestimate that sometimes, because sometimes it's just caught in the angry online stuff, people deeply entrenched both sides. And you forget there's kind of this soft middle of America where it's just like, yeah, this is a weird phenomenon going on, and I'm not even really sure how to interact with it. So I think how you act and respond speaks more volumes sometimes than the argument itself.
Well, that would be good too, that as a speaker, he would go and mingle with the crowd and, both pro and con, people who like what he say and people who don't like what he says, just because you're going to get that interaction. Because sometimes I don't know. I feel like a lot of commentators can, they get on Fox or whatever, MSNBC, and they just throw a bunch of haymakers and they don't really interact. They don't touch grass and they don't actually talk to people, on an everyday basis. And it's all just kind of a beltway bubble. And to the extent that you can actually talk to, regular Joes and regular people who are dealing with these kind of issues. And I feel like in many ways we're very blessed again, because people write us in and we read what people have to say and we learn from them. So
I know we've even talked about like getting me kind of out and having these kind of conversations, maybe recording some of them with kids in college or just around there. I'm like, because I even think sometimes myself, we sit on this podcast and like even when I go to mass or like the circles we're in are pretty Catholic, probably pretty traditional, Orthodox by a lot of people's standards. So it would be like, even me, I want to get out there a little bit more and just have more conversations. Anyway, that's probably all of a side tangent of like what we usually do here. But Tom, I know that you were a little prophetic on RFK. So I have in the notes document, RFK implodes. Josh thinks that's a little bit of a stretch, but
I would love for that to be the case. I'm just not sure the evidence is there yet. Well, we'll see.
To give, it's a quick soundbite, so I'll just summarize it. Basically, he went on Sage Steele's show, and Sage asked about his abortion policy if he was president, and he talked about his direct quote was, "No, I wouldn't leave it to the states. I believe that we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have the government involved." Sage asked, "Even if it's full term?" And then he replied with, "Even if it's full term." So pretty extreme and unpopular, kind of on both sides. I even saw some Democrats criticizing for this, but like Democrats don't really believe that it should be full term, which
that's a joke they do. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
But definitely from the right, a huge pushback. I mean, just no one wanted this answer. I think people hopeful that RFK was kind of this fun, trendy third option. I think a lot of those hopes and dreams are kind of being shattered right about now. I know he also had comments about a worm being found in his brain, which is also kind of bizarre. But Tom, didn't you get asked about RFK earlier?
Wait, over the weekend, I had a Politico reporter ask me about RFK and how his effect is going to be on the races. And to one question, she directly asked me, pro-life groups have been talking about spending money and targeting RFK Jr. And I told the reporter, like, that I hope they don't do that, because that's kind of like swatting at fleas when the wolf is at your door, and Joe Biden being the wolf. And then a couple of days later, first you have the brain worm. And if I could just say one thing on that, Kennedy 101, when you're drinking tequila, you chew the worm. Otherwise, you just never know what's going to happen.
Did you hear about what Seth Dillon posted about this? You know, he's the guy with the Babylon Bee. He said they had a reader suggest headlines for, you know, Babylon Bee. It's a satire site, right? And somebody a few months ago submitted this as a potential headline: "Tapeworm disgusted to find itself in a politician." So obviously we had somebody who was, I don't know, that might have been a different oracle. I thought that was
sorry, what were you saying, Tom?
Well, no, just as Josh pointed out on his abortion policy, and there were people at Catholic Vote who were hopeful. We think his pro-family policy that he came out with was pretty solid. Would like to see it adopted by President Trump, helping build families. But as Josh pointed out, his policy of abortion right until birth, as much as they try to deny it, that is the policy of the Democratic Party. That is the policy of Joe Biden. You look at any of the state amendments that have passed, that is what is now allowed under those amendments. If you look at the Democratic platform, that is what they allow. They hide it under false faces of, oh, it's between a woman and a doctor, as if there isn't a third human being, let alone the father also, who should have a say in whether they survive or not. So while I do agree with Josh again that imploding might be a little early to say that, I still think it's wise to concentrate fire, if you're a pro-life group with limited resources, on how bad Joe Biden is. Because leave it to a Kennedy, they'll self-implode eventually.
Well, I mean, it is very disappointing. I mean, there were some people who were thinking, oh, maybe RFK is worthy of support. You know, Tom and I agree that no way we wouldn't support him. He says a few things that are courageous, right? Like he rails against big pharma, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's good to say. Yeah. Thank you. And then he'll talk about how the Democratic Party is, you know, totally not in favor of workers anymore. I'm like, I'm with you, buddy. That's good. Yeah, I like what I hear. And then he's like, oh, and by the way, full-term abortion until the entire full term. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. So there were some, you know, America First people who were like, gosh, you know, I like how he's just, you know, against corporate interests. He's against big pharma. Maybe he's kind of our guy. He's independent. How independent is he? He's in favor of abortion on demand 100% up through all 9 months. Just like Joe Biden, he's a baptized Catholic and now supports abortion up until the end of the term. Every minute that baby's in the womb, he believes in abortion, just like Biden. I guess the only difference between Kennedy and Biden on this issue is Kennedy feels a little guilty about it. He calls abortion tragic. But you know what? No one's buying this anymore. No one's buying this game. If you consider something to be tragic, then you should stop it from happening, and you should protect women from, you know, an abortion industry that is making money off of misery. So I don't buy it for a second.
I have to imagine he's now siphoning more votes from Biden.
Well, we'll see. Again, we see this story. It came down the pike, and immediately we get a reaction from it. But again, this story, it might take a week or two before it gets out to enough people and they realize, wait a minute now, Kennedy is just like any other Democrat on abortion. So we'll see what happens to the poll numbers. I feel like when you look at the polling of third-party candidates, it kind of ebbs and flows or whatever, and there's this kind of movement going on where people are kind of thinking about him, and maybe they aren't, and they'll say it when a pollster calls they want the third-party candidate, and they're hoping that other people they'll be able to peel away people from the other two parties, and then all of a sudden that third-party candidate starts to rise. In 1992, I remember this very well, like Ross Perot, there was a moment where it looked like Ross Perot actually was number one in the polls. He actually could get elected president, And he was, of course, freaked out. He's like, I don't even want to run. This is my conjecture on him, by the way. He didn't say that out loud. And then he pulls out and he quits. And it's because he didn't actually want to win. He just wanted to prevent George H.W. Bush from getting reelected. Well, mission accomplished. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the third party candidate even trying to do in this race? Are they end up usually being a spoiler and preventing somebody from winning. And in this case, I believe that Kennedy is just trying to prevent Biden from winning again. And why? I don't know, but that's my gut reaction.
That was one of the takes I saw. It was like he knows at this point he's not going to win, or maybe he always knew, and he's just been going up to the point until he says stuff that's like extreme enough to remove Republican support. It's like now's the time he chose. It's like, okay, I'm going to implode the campaign, and then.
I don't know about implode. Again, I mean, there's a lot of Republicans that abortion is not their number one issue at all, even if they are nominally pro-life. So we'll see. But
yeah, although interesting, I see a lot of Democrats have been very frustrated with Biden's handling of the Israel-Palestine conflict, and so they're definitely looking for a alternative candidate at this point. So frustrated to the point where like
huge in Michigan here, I can tell you that.
Michigan, I think both sides though, and I think there's a lot of Jewish people who are just like, I can't. After he withheld the shipment of weapons to Israel recently, that's like a big, whoa, what are we doing here? Red flag for a lot of Jews. But I think, Tom, we were kind of talking a little bit earlier. Is that enough really for Jewish people to be like, all right, I'm not going to do what we have done kind of for the last 100 years. So there's a lot of entrenched Democrats.
I think it's just like have been doing with other minorities. It's going to siphon off a lot of votes. It'll be interesting, to Josh's point, if RFK starts saying anything about the Israel-Palestine conflict, to see if he is really trying to siphon votes from Biden. It would probably be wise for him to go to Michigan and start talking about free Palestine or any of that other campus.
That would be smart for RFK to do. He could potentially go into Dearborn and win a lot of votes by doing that. And the thing is, you said, Tom, about Pogo, you said about the Jewish vote or whatever, but the Jewish vote in terms of presidential elections is not as influential as, ironically, the Muslim vote. So if you look, like, states with large Jewish populations, they tend to be states that are pretty firm. So New York, California, Florida, those we pretty much know who's going to win each of those three states. There is a decent amount of Jewish vote in my state of Michigan, but way overwhelmed by the Muslim or Arab American vote in the Dearborn area and that kind of stuff. So the Muslims actually exert more of an influence with regards to the presidential vote because they're making a major difference. I just don't know how Joe Biden is going to get to win Michigan at this rate, and he wants this conflict in Gaza over and done with as soon as possible, but it's not working, and he's trying to play both sides, and it's a nightmare for the Biden White House. What's going on there?
Josh, I have a humble suggestion of how he might do that. So there's a couple of new things going on in Congress. One, House Republicans tried to pass something called the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act would protect and preserve the right of American citizens to vote by, one, requiring states to obtain proof of citizenship in person when registering an individual to vote, and then two, requiring states to remove non-citizens from exiting voter polls. So all Democrats voted against this. There's no way this passes the Senate and gets to the president's desk. But this is going on while simultaneously there's a new pilot program for identification for illegal immigrants. So the
what could go wrong?
Right. So there's two things going on right now.
Can I get an ID in Mexico?
Yeah.
What I should do is I should go down to Mexico City and demand that they give me a driver's license, because I had illegals come into Michigan, into my state capital, and demand driver's license. Like, the audacity! I'm just amazed by this. It's like, how is it that you read in your history books, how did the Roman Empire fall? They were so mighty and so strong.
But Josh, if you were thinking about it though, if I was someone that wanted to have the maximum amount of influence on American government, I would I would get people across the border as fast as possible, supply them with identification, and then send them to all the battleground states. Because all the battleground states all have different registration processes, voting processes, what's required. It's all on a state level. So it's already kind of hard enough to keep track of whether or not there's weird stuff going on. We saw a ton of problems with the last election going on. So why not try your best to sneak in as many people from outside the country, promise them things, load them up with IDs, send them to all the most influential states, right? Is anyone tracking this?
I've gave that suggestion to a few groups who have been tracking and have a lot of resources on this, including the Heritage Foundation. And one story I've heard is they did geofencing on the other side of the border. A conservative group here in DC. I'm not sure if it's public, so I don't know if I can say who they are. But and they found like about 30,000 people on the Mexican side of the border, and then tracked them as they came across into what states they were going to. But what they were looking at was, were they influencing any of the campus protests? And they found about 1,000 or 2,000 of those people were like in the center of a lot of those protests, which makes you wonder how that happened. But I have asked them, and hopefully they will find out, like, are they sending these illegals, they being either the federal government, the Biden government, or with the support of the Biden government, to states like Michigan and Ohio, well, not Ohio anymore, but to battleground states, Pennsylvania, to influence the elections.
Yeah. Well, and again, this legislation that you talked about, I mean, one of the things about the way our government works is that Democrats are protecting illegal immigration because it benefits them. Because there was a ruling of the Supreme Court many generations ago that said the way that the Constitution talked about doing the census was to talk about all the people who are inhabited in a district. And so the Supreme Court ruled, well, then that would be anybody, even people who are there illegally. And it's one of those things where you actually talk to average people and they get blown away. They're like, wait a minute. Okay, so if we have 12 million illegal immigrants, and like, let's say 3 million are in New York and 4 million are in California, you're saying that California gets more representatives in Congress because they have people here illegally? And I say, yes, that is exactly what's happening. Well, why don't they change that? Because Democrats oppose it with every fiber of their being. That's why. And Democrats get more votes for the Electoral College because that's based on the number of people you have in Congress. And so they get a benefit of like 12, 15 votes in the Electoral College because of this. It's all on purpose. And so we have tried to fight this. The Trump administration during his first term was trying to challenge this ruling, and the Supreme Court was like, it's like, it is absolutely insane. If you actually could bring back, hey, James Madison, yeah, you're writing this Constitution. What do you think about this? We'll flood the country with 11 million immigrants, and that'll help this one political party have more power. And they'd be like, wait, what? Can we just not be an independent country now? Can we just ask the King of England to take over the country again? I mean, they would lose their mind.
Well, you tell them about the tax rate. I'm sure that would be enough to foment another revolution.
It's an invasion, and it's on purpose, and the Democrats know they're doing it, and it's evil, and they need to be stopped.
Yeah.
There's even a Democrat, Representative Clark from New York, who said, Democrat, I need more people in my district just for your districting purposes, when asked directly about immigrants coming to her district, illegal immigrants.
Yeah, she loved it, welcomed it, yeah. She was afraid that when they do reapportionment and they change the size of the district, then she's going to have to expand her district and have other people. It's like, no, I want more illegals in here, because then it's easy to make sure I get reelected.
And before we move on, just to be clear, I oppose King Charles retaking over the United States.
I'm just saying that's what the Founding Fathers might have said. Maybe we should have done this. I don't know.
Yeah. So that pilot program, I guess, is supposed to go into effect in the summer. It's going to start with the distribution of about 10,000 cards. Sources familiar with the program told Fox Houston and Atlanta were two potential locations. So
I mean, everyone involved with that should be put in jail.
Because that's the Democrats come out and say that the legislation that was passed is unnecessary. Because there's already laws on the books that aren't being enforced, though, because the very next day we're reading stories about this.
Not in being enforced. I mean, is a nice way of saying completely, utterly ignored on purpose.
Well, yeah,
Right.
And they're using ICE. The title of ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and they're using that to hand out cards.
Yeah.
Well, they're changing the from enforcement to elections.
Yeah.
I guess, dude. It's crazy.
Well,
So-
again, just gets to that ad I was telling you. Didn't we talk about that in the last Loopcast about the ad that the Trump campaign's doing in Georgia on black
that was a good one.
radio? I mean, just like what asking basically the audience, what do you think about this? Going up to New York City and they just hand you, thousands of bucks and money and food and all this.
I actually
stuff.
do think that's the most potent. Like, you talk about messages that win are simple and people feel them. Like
Because
the
all through
handing
the
out
clutter.
of free money to people not from the country, free money and housing,
Who illegally enter the country.
right? Who broke a law to get here, and then you look at homeless people or people suffering, or even like low income people struggling to make rent. That's the
Well, I think
easiest,
about our
most
veterans.
accessible message to give to people.
Our veterans that fought in wars in this part of the the 21st century, and every 22 minutes or whatever a soldier takes his
their
life.
yeah.
And I think to myself, how we haven't done enough for them. And there was that controversy in Phoenix where the wait times were through the roof, and they weren't getting the health care that they needed. But the Biden administration, boy, they want to make sure they get all the free handouts to illegals and get them IDs and phones and food and
Yeah.
it's garbage. It's like then you start to realize, wait, that doesn't make any sense. That can't be happening because you expect them to be rational. Well, they are being rational. They're doing what they want to do to get reelected. That's what they're doing.
Right. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I saw this in the loop and I was curious what you guys thought about it. So someone did a study or did some research on the next level of what we're going to see from protests. And they're saying that the next level is going to be high school level protests. Are you guys familiar with this?
Is this on Gaza?
This is on Gaza, yeah. So a brief summary, and this is Stanley Kurtz, senior fellow at Ethics and Public Policy Center, nationally known education policy analyst. Basically, he's concerned because school districts, and I think he specifically targeted Chicago public schools, are making protests a part of the civics curriculum.
Lovely.
And they are making it like they're giving school time and no punishments for kids to take part of protests. So I think they're giving like a free half hour during the day to any kids to be politically active. And obviously the most recent ones are Gaza. They actually had a organized walkout to, I think it was DePaul, to a student encampment during school as a part of the activism. Of course, like Jewish students are kind of like, this is making me a little uncomfortable. So it was organized by Chicago Youth for Justice, which is a nonprofit. So we have outside nonprofits organizing protests that are encouraged and actually part of the curriculum by school districts to give kids free time out of class to make politically divisive protests. The sign read, "Show up and show out. There's no penalty for you coming, and you will get your attendance as well." So there's no attendance penalty.
Yeah, see, this just doesn't surprise me at all that the white women of the suburbs of Chicago feel that they have no purpose in life and they don't know what to do. And then these agitating left-wing organizations come along and say, we'll provide purpose and give a reason for your kids to live, to escape, the office, being an office drone. And the left thinks agitation and protest is, it's their lifeblood. They can't imagine life without it. Like everything is a struggle against the system and the man, which cracks me up because they are the man. Like they are in control of just about everything in society. They control the media, they control the bureaucracy, they control the government, they control the media, the entertainment. It's everything. And so it's like, who are you protesting against? It drives me crazy.
Chicago has had a March for Life for like the last 2 or 3 decades. Maybe we should start taking advantage of this. Find out where the local abortion facilities are near the school. Have them go pray with a 40 Days for Life crew or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't get time off. I remember like when I was in school, you wouldn't get time off to go to the March for Life. There's penalties. Like you had to take an attendance penalty or whatever. Like, isn't something inherent to protesting? Like you are raging against the man, taking the penalty, risking whatever that is. Like we have this weird, like mutated protesting that is now just like publicly celebrated by everyone with no damage to reputation. If anything, it increases reputation. Like that's not what protesting is. This isn't protesting.
I guess
like,
I
this
just
is
don't
lobbying.
understand this. Help me out here, Pogo.
Yeah.
Why would they be protesting Gaza? I thought we were told 3 or 4 years ago by that that girl in Sweden that was yelling and screaming at us all the time, that climate change was the big problem. I mean, have we forgotten?
Don't
Our
worry,
world is on fire.
Josh,
How can we waste time on Gaza when there's a planet to save?
don't give away my Twilight Zone. She'll come up again. Don't worry. We're going to be talking about Greta. But for example, like in California, another example of action civics, there's a group of social justice activists that received nearly $2 million in taxpayer funds to train public school students and teachers in equity leadership and activism. So these 78 public school students were paid $1,400 each to become activists as part of contracts awarded to Californians for Justice by the Long Beach Unified School District. Since 2019, students have been receiving the funds, which a district spokesperson referred to as stipends, for internships to join the CFJ club and participate in its political activities. So this is lobbying.
Pipeline,
what about
baby.
this is protesting?
Total pipeline.
Right, like these kids are basically
And
being groomed and
brainwashing.
encouraged to take part. Yeah, right. Like they're being given handouts, they're being given slogans, they're told they'll get time off, and it's actually going to help their social. Like I think about it right now with Gaza and Israel. Like you can
Help
make
their
your
social credit
entire
score when we finally adopt the Chinese.
I
credit
guess
score
like when the
system.
credit score comes around, but in terms of like social media and like social, like to say that you support one side of that, you're either getting social boost from a certain group of people and the other side hates you, but this has nothing to do with actual, like you're not risking anything. This is all complete. And at a high school, like we can't even let our kids like grow up in an environment to learn. And this is
Well, I know what you say about
I'm having
risking
such a hard
anything
time.
because, like, if you look at the Civil War, the civil rights protests in the '60s, actually, it did take courage,
correct.
to protest against the regime in the South that was promoting racism at every turn institutionally. Yeah, it did take courage to push back against that. What courage is there in the city of very liberal enclave of Chicago and the immediate suburbs to you're going to go and protest like the latest pet cause? Is it the environment today? Oh no, it's Gaza. Oh
Right.
wow, real brave.
Yeah, but there's like certain causes, like to Tom's point, that are politically unpopular that actually you would sacrifice something for. Like if you said you didn't want to have a girl in your locker room or a boy in your girl's locker room, like that actually is challenging.
Yeah, I mean,
right? That's not a
to march for life, to march for marriage, between a man and woman. Can you imagine doing any of that? To fight for girls' sports not being eradicated by, the trans.
It's
athletes?
more courageous for a kid to not take part of a school sanctioned pride parade now
Right.
than to do the opposite.
To push back
And
against the
these
rainbow
are all
jihad.
people that if you do March for Life or anything like that, the same people that'll be marching for Gaza and getting paid for it are the ones who are going to yell at you, scream at you, and in too many instances, throw stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's people just, and to me, it began all way back under Bill Clinton when he started AmeriCorps, which gave us the oxymoron of paid volunteers. Which I just never understood. And then George W. Bush.
Wait, can you explain what AmeriCorps was? And
AmeriCorps, and it still exists today to the tune of like a few $100 million of taxpayer funds. It was created by Bill Clinton to help kids with their student loans or anything like that. That was the supposed purpose of it. But you would volunteer at different places, and the American taxpayer would pay you to volunteer. And it came out that some of those places were Democratic polling places. They were Planned Parenthood, where you could lobby on abortion. It was just total left-wing causes. And then George W. Bush comes in, and I know that he's Josh's favorite president, except he
Not
continues
quite.
this crap.
Well, all that stuff about Barack Obama being a community organizer, that's what this is. That's what the left does. What is community organizing? It's getting the government to fund these left-wing causes and basically hire a team so that when elections come around, they've got a whole army mobilized and ready to flip on like a switch. That's all that this is. It's all a way to enrich their friends and to increase the vote for Democrats. That's
Punish
what
enemies.
AmeriCorps is. That's what all these, PIRGs are. That's what they all do.
And one thing that grooming does, it's one reason why there are so many liberals in government and so few conservatives, because conservatives, I think, are usually encouraged to be more free thinkers. and it's very hard to be a free thinker when you're a government drone.
Yeah, coming from the man in the swamp himself. But
I was told by my masters to say that.
Thank you, Tom.
I was thinking, like, you kind of get to the bottom of it. It's like, okay, you're using so taxpayer fund is also a euphemism kind of for my money. Like, you're using my money to support things that I do not believe in. Like, I don't think you should be paying volunteers to go support causes that, whether or not I believe in it, is kind of besides the point. Like, why is my money now going towards that? And maybe I'm just seeing this a lot more. Like, school has changed a lot, I guess.
Well, I tend to be of the belief that the hardest thing to get rid of is a government program. But the only way you could probably ever do it is if you told, you get a new president and says, if you want to do any of the AmeriCorps volunteer positions, it has to be for, a right to life organization. It has to be for, and just limit it to such a thing that everyone the left would just lose their minds and they want to shut the whole thing down. Again, it's a
interesting strategy.
I mean, it's just like you gotta do what it takes to try to. It's like NPR. What you could do with NPR to get rid of NPR, you would just say you take someone who is the head of Fox News or Newsmax and pluck them and make them in charge of NPR and hire and fire a bunch of people. Suddenly, the liberals would go crazy. Yeah, it'd be fun.
Well, the Democrats do that well because what you do is you starve it. Because Barack Obama came in and he cut hundreds of millions of dollars for abstinence funding. And what happened were a whole bunch of abstinence groups caved. Donald Trump came in and he tried to cut funding for AmeriCorps and a number of these other things. And the reaction was Republicans in Congress were fighting him on it. It's just...
Why?
Because there are just too many rhinos, they succumb to... this is why we've never been able to fully defund NPR or PBS, because all of a sudden Elmo comes to testify before Congress, and I wish that was a joke, but Elmo has testified before Congress a number of times. Me wanting more money. And the Republicans
fight with Elmo. That would have been great.
Oh man, I'm just thinking of Elmo testifying now.
Well, I'm glad he did, not Oscar. He's trash.
Tom, I wonder if you can speak
but
to this.
Oscar probably shares our values. Come on, let's face it.
That's facts. Could you
just want to be left alone?
I think that, and I've heard this, and it's always interesting to hear the answer. I think that Trump underestimated. He came in knowing he was there to drain the swamp, but he underestimated how much resistance he would get from people he thought were going to be his friends or his allies. Would you say
part of that is that Republicans talk a big game. Republican candidates, when they run for office, they sound like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, and then they get to Washington and they become more like Nancy Pelosi, and they want more government spending on everything.
And nothing is harder than, as Josh said, like a government program is eternal. Nothing is harder than when somebody is getting federal funds to stop those federal funds. Because we all start eventually sucking at the teat of the government. My wife and I visited Alaska a few years ago, and Alaskans, they were so great to meet, and a number of them just seemed so libertarian. And then you'd ask them, because they get a huge subsidy from the Alaska pipeline.
Yeah.
And the federal or the state government wanted to start taking more of that subsidy away from the people, Alaskan people. And the Alaskan people were like, who had nothing to do with building the pipeline. They just happened to live in the state for a long time. Not that I want to see the state government getting these funds. However, you try to take away their government subsidy, and they're going to get their guns.
Well, I will say this in their defense. Okay, now this is where I get a little contrarian. Okay, this is the same. What you just said reminds me a lot about how MSNBC and a lot of liberals reacted to the Tea Party protests. So there's the Tea Party protests, like in 2010, right? And we don't want to pay for somebody, because what the Tea Party started with, if people remember, was that this idea that people were going to be required to secure somebody else's failing mortgage. Like, you bought a house and you're in over your head and you can't afford it. Well, that's okay. That stinks. Sell your house or whatever. Do what you need to do. But the government was going to come along and basically say, well, we'll find a way to make sure you don't have to do that. And it's like, wait a minute now. It's the purpose of the taxpayers isn't to make sure that I secure someone else's, mortgage. That's not fair. That's not right. Like, sorry, that's not the way this works. Like, you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car. What does the federal government have to do with this kind of stuff? And then when some people were talking, when some Republicans were talking about cutting Medicare and Medicaid, these same Tea Party activists say, "Whoa, no, don't cut entitlements," and MSNBC laughed. They're like, "Oh, so libertarian you are," and all of a sudden you might lose some Medicaid or Medicare funding and Social Security funding. Then you suddenly turn, from being a libertarian into being a socialist. And I understand that same argument. The same argument I'm hearing about this Alaska cutting off the state subsidy. But I would say this. What has been the track record of politicians in our country over the last 40 some years? It has been to take more and more and more and more of our money. And I understand actually the Tea Party protests. Like, I don't want to suddenly have the government underwrite every mortgage and, make sure that no one can get whatever house they want to and without any consequences. But that's different than paying into, and I don't like paying into Social Security, but I was never given the choice. I think back, I was telling my daughter she's going to start a new job, she's 17 or whatever, and I'm having to explain to her, oh yeah, guess what? You're going to be paying 12% of your money to Social Security.
It's always a fun lesson.
And it's like, what? And it's like, well, they'll tell you it's only 6.2, but the employer's paying 6.2%, so you're really paying 12.4 or whatever it is. You're paying 12%. And I just think back to all the diapers and how much money I spent on food, and I had two 13-year-old cars. I'm thinking, boy, 12% of my income could have come in really a lot in handy over the last 15, 20 years. You know what I mean? But instead, I'm paying it to make sure boomers can retire comfortably. So yeah,
well, your daughter's working now. Can't you just start charging her rent?
Yeah, come on.
Those were her diapers you were changing.
Yeah, try it sometime. No, but I mean, and so ultimately, though, it sounds like, well, wait a minute, you're not so limited government because now you're coming to the defense of this oil subsidy that you get, or you're afraid that the government's going to take its Social Security away. But I would say this. The government, our politicians in Washington and our state governments have screwed up so many things, taken so much money away from us that, and forced us into the Social Security. It's not like there's not any vote I had on this. It was done in 1835. So we don't really have any choice in the matter. And then if you start tinkering it or cutting with it, then yeah, people are going to get their pitchforks because they put in 40, 50 years into it. So I understand actually that. It's not like we're given a choice. Hey, do we want to get rid of our massive, large federal government and go more towards what we had in the 19th century, a more limited government? It's not like we're given that choice. It's always, we're going to have a large federal government for the foreseeable future. The question is, what is it going to look like?
Josh, could I shake it up here?
Why not?
Do you guys want to see the future of dating?
What?
You're talking to two old married men.
You guys might have gotten off on the last plane at Vietnam. Yeah, can we get that clip played from the founder of Bumble?
Focus with AI is to help create more healthy and equitable relationships. And that also starts with yourself. How can we actually teach you how to date? How can we help you show up in a better way?
So give me an example.
Okay, so for example, you could in the near future be talking to your AI dating concierge, and you could share your insecurities. I just came out of a breakup. I have commitment issues. And it could help you train yourself into a better way of thinking about yourself, and then it could give you productive tips for communicating with other people. If you want to get really out there, there is a world where your dating concierge could go and date for you with other dating concierge. No, truly. And then you don't have to talk to 600 people. It will scan all of San Francisco for you and say, these are the 3 people you really ought to meet.
Oh, man.
Like the next level of computer dating, I guess. I don't know.
That sounds about as wise as AI priest.
Yeah, we're living in the Black Mirror. Have you guys seen any Black Mirror? I mean, this is a Black Mirror episode. This is unbelievable.
I mean, that's just performing the function that people of your same sex would kind of help do for you. So, like, men would talk to other men, young men, and say, well, here, I went on a date and it didn't work out. Oh, well, I don't know. Tell me what happened. And then the guy tells you, like, oh, yeah, dude, you can't say that. Girl will think that no. And there's that correction process that's going on where people try to, hey, it's the bro code. No, you can't say that. She'll be totally offended or she'll think you're weird. Well, I meant it nicely. No. And so that kind of and women, I imagine, would do the same as well.
Don't need that
And because
anymore,
we
Josh.
don't have enough friendships that are now, because we're so digital, we're offloading that into
AI's your friend,
AI.
Josh.
Yeah.
Not you're talking about the post-date recap. We're talking about the date itself. Like we're talking about having an AI version of you date an AI version of someone else. I don't know what those conversations would even look like. And then they come back to you and they're like, look, we vetted their AI. Now you should maybe talk to them. And maybe you guys FaceTime because you're super progressive or something like that before you get into an actual physical date. What are we talking about here? It kind of reminds me of that that Apple commercial where they just kind of accidentally like made everyone sad by crushing everything that's like cool and that we enjoy like into a screen. And they're just like that. I don't know what kind of isolation do these founders get into where no one told them like, hey, this is probably not a good idea, or like the way you're talking about it is going to scare people.
Yeah, if my wife had an AI concierge when we were dating, I would not be married today, I don't think, because marrying me, I think, was totally against
Every AI red flag.
yeah, it would have been like, whoa, you sure about this?
Yeah, man. Future dating.
The little paperclip thing comes up. Perhaps you're interested in somebody else.
Oh, like the little like old Microsoft paperclip, or
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Clippy. Yeah, no, I just what a great reference. I forgot about Clippy. Yeah, I wish we could go back to Clippy sometimes.
I think part of this is this. I mean, again, this is sometimes where we have a lot of interesting innovators in Silicon Valley, but sometimes they just need to go touch grass. I mean, you find out about like the work culture of some of these companies, and like Google, they like try to prevent people from ever actually leaving. I mean, like they provide meals. They want people to stay, get there at 8 a.m. and stay till like 10 p.m. And they don't end up leading normal lives at all. And they don't have, there's no outside community. This is a more healthy, situation would be you go to work and then you have your friends outside of work and you have your church or other civic institutions and you have these other pockets of life, and that kind of keeps you grounded. But we don't have any of that anymore. Someone else was saying this, that like basically work becomes this place where you have your friends, you have your church in a sense, you have your therapy, you bring religion, everything to the table, and everything, religion too. And I think this is bearing out from that. So like if you're working, 12 hours a day and you're like, oh gosh, well, I'm too busy with my work project, I'll just have AI find a date for me. Like,
also, I guess we haven't been in that.
What?
It's kind of funny that people are suggesting that the solution to this would be to have your AI go do something that should be like fun and enjoyable and exciting, instead of saying, hey, let's just have my AI concierge do all the crappy work that I don't want to do. You know what I mean?
I mean, the people that are making these AI programs are probably not the most dateable people anyway, and so the idea of actually meeting someone of the opposite sex terrifies them.
Why is the instinct?
I'll have my avatar do this.
No, I want my avatar to do all the monotonous work isn't that how it started? We're like, oh, we're gonna get rid of like the dumb jobs that no one wants to do, and now everyone's like, no, we're using AI to go on dates with other AI instead of you going on dates. Like, this is what I want to do. I don't want my AI to go like play basketball. I want to go play basketball.
Have the AI go on vacation for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, don't worry. You can stay at work. We'll have your AI go on vacation. You'll be completely rested by then. They'll send you pictures.
Here's the pictures from when you went to Costa Rica. Here's
exactly. When your AI concierge went to Costa Rica. My goodness, man. It's like people need to start thinking about AI to do the stuff that we don't like instead of all the stuff that we should like. That's my pitch to all the AI people out there. Okay, we run into the real Twilight Zone now. McCluskey, you are up first.
Well, since Erica's not with us and she's usually the most serious one, I wanted to give an update on a story that was on Tuesday of next week. 9 of the anti-abortion rescuers are going to be receiving potentially up to 11 years in prison. These are the DC-9, the DC-5, DC-9, who went into an abortion facility to save babies, which is illegal, and they understand this. This is real protest and civil rights protest, standing up for those who can't, and knew they were going to get arrested, but had no idea that they would be facing up to 11 years in prison. When you consider the contrast of other such arrests usually end up with fines or something along those lines, and what these rescuers did, champions of life, when they forced themselves into the facility, they also rescued a whole bunch of corpses of late-term abortions, which is illegal in the District of Columbia. And both the federal government and DC government decided not to investigate that. It was more important that these protesters get the full weight of the law against them. And
This doesn't make sense, Tom.
It's a continuing Twilight Zone.
I've been reliably informed that protesting should be encouraged in a part of civics, and they'll just bail you out. And you know what I mean? Like, I've heard you could even get paid to protest, but we're getting these people 11 years.
Maybe they should go to the local public school and see if they can get credit for what they're doing.
Yeah, or maybe they should throw on a headscarf or whatever, and maybe they would have been okay. Like,
well, not part of in some of these people, not part of this group, except, I mean, we all know about the grandmother Holocaust survivor, I think in Tennessee. These are not, these are all very sympathetic figures, but the Biden administration does not care, because they're just so pro-abortion that anybody who supports abortion belongs in jail. They just believe that.
Have you saw that article? I think it was an op-ed in the Washington Post about how Biden's abortion push seems desperate, was the word that was used. Did you guys see that article?
It was. I
Really
mean,
well done.
what the Biden administration, the Biden reelection campaign realizes is that abortion is an incredibly powerful motivator to get young single women usually, but also some married women in the suburbs that are very motivated on the abortion issue. It is Joe Biden, his ticket to the reelection, he is convinced, is convincing pro-abortion voters to come out in droves. And so that's it. Just think about that. We have a Catholic president, and he is banking his entire reelection effort, centering it on abortion and promoting it at every turn. And he needs to convince the abortion community, the abortion industry, how dedicated he is to killing babies, that he's putting these peaceful people in jail. So yes, again, it's an absolute shame that any Catholic would support Joe Biden.
I just cannot get over how hypocritical all this is. Like, I do feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone sometimes. Okay. So I think I'm up next here, Josh.
Well, let me go next because I think that's a good transition from that.
All right, roll.
So at the end of the day, it's not too much of a Twilight. It is Twilight Zone that Biden is so pro-abortion, okay, of course, right? But it's not ultimately a surprise, I guess. But there's this stand-up comic, and he's doing a little routine. And sometimes the stand-up comics, what they'll do is they'll try to do a little interplay with the audience and ask questions or whatever, and they'll use that because they want fresh material and to play off the crowd and get people laughing and stuff like this. And this did not happen like in Arkansas or Idaho or Fort Worth, Texas. This is in Chicago at the Laugh Factory, where the stand-up comic is asking a guy in the audience what he does for a living. Nope, not Eurovision.
Wrong one.
When the stand-up comic gets quite the surprise when he finds out where this guy is working. The audience.
What do you do for a living now? You work for the Biden administration. Is your job to wake them up, or what's your job? There's a war! Okay, what do you do for the Biden administration? What a show of a job you have. I can't believe you admitted that in front of all these people. You have the freedom to lie. You could have said you were a hooker and I would have been proud of you. What do you do?
I travel to southern states.
You go to the South and try to sell them on Biden? What are you talking about? That's your f***ing job? You go, hey, listen, I know you guys like Trump, but Biden, I mean... Wow. Are you ready to be unemployed, or what's your...
That was outstanding. That made me laugh. We had to do a little bit of the censorship there, bleep out some of the swear words
That's a
there.
laugh
As you can
factor.
imagine, it gets a little salty at a comedy club. But boy, what does that tell you? How things might be turning and shifting on the ground where you can, as a stand-up comic in Chicago, can be ripping on Biden that powerfully in a deep blue city, in a deep blue state. That, I don't know. That's
And
kind of
getting
interesting.
laughs and not getting boos or anything like that.
Big time.
Or
laughs.
not just friendly claps or, whatever. Strong, hearty laughs. Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
I mean, it's a funny proposition thinking about having to go to the South to be like, hey, you like all this illegal immigration? You want some
But he
money?
gave the best argument for Biden.
Yeah, he's just shrugging his shoulders.
Just shrug his shoulders.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Okay.
Are you ready to be unemployed? That was like chef's kiss right there. It was so good.
All right, we roll now to me. So for music fans internationally, we got Eurovision is going on. There's a pretty funny Will Ferrell movie. Apparently, I haven't seen it yet, but essentially it's a international music competition. Now, as you can imagine, there's some controversy going on right now. If I could just get, can I get the Washington Post coverage on it, please? Scroll down a little bit. Can we get a scroll down? What is Greta Thunberg doing on the top of this? I was like, oh, interesting. There's stuff going on at Eurovision. I almost did a double take. Top picture on this article is Greta Thunberg, climate activist, I guess, wrapped in the Kiev or whatever. And she's pro-Palestine. Like, what? I guess it's in Sweden, but like, what could she possibly? It's like she needs to find new things to protest everywhere. Like, the climate's not hot enough. Like, we got to go move over, find the newest thing to be a part of here. So the controversy, I was like, the only thing that made me read into this more was the fact that she was at the top. I was like, there's something dumb going on here. So there's a pop star, Eden Golan. First off, she has an unbelievable voice. She's a 20-year-old, and basically each country will submit a singer, an act to sing a song at Eurovision. It's a music competition. And she is like, if you could have cooked up the most controversial background of a singer in today's times, like, this is the person. So she was born to a Ukrainian mother and a Latvian father, but until 2 years ago in the full-scale of invasion of Ukraine, she was a pop star in Russia. So you already got that, which is tough for the international community right now. And she was representing Israel. So she's Israeli. She lives in Israel.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which is like the ultimate trifecta of like stuff that the left hates right now. And so the problem with what Eurovision did was they banned Russia. So they banned Russia shortly after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. And so now all these music fans are like, oh, well, clearly we can pressure them into banning people we don't like. So we're going to ban Israel. Like, Israel should not be able to participate in this. Those Zionists, they're all these problems. And to Eurovision's credit, they're not bending to that. But of course, that sets a horrible precedent when you're just like, nope, they're not going to participate. And I know we have similar problems with like Olympics in the past of like banning certain countries or whatever. Anytime you get the international community going, it's tough. But first, why is Greta Thunberg involved? I don't understand. But anyway, there was all these protests at Eurovision.
Because there's cameras.
Yeah, because there's cameras, exactly.
That's it.
And so the Eurovision held strong. The theme is United by Music, ironically. And all these people flooded
Protest.
Sweden to protest Israel's involvement. And she was going to sing a song that had the lyric October Rain in it, referring to the massacre that happened in Israel. And that was deemed a little bit too controversial political, so she changed the lyrics. But even the fact that she went and performed, there was these mass protests. They don't think that she should be there. And I don't know, man. Like, I just see these things like the Olympics or the World Cup or Eurovision or whatever. And this poor girl, like, she didn't choose to be born to these parents or like where she was born. She has an unbelievable voice. She's a pop star. It just seems kind of like just really poor taste to just be going to these lengths, threatening Jewish people there. It's like, you can't just go sing and let music unite everyone. It's the same thing with soccer. It's the same thing with the Olympics.
It's also,
like, everyone should be there.
It's just kind of weird, though, like the assumption that a person from a country is automatically in favor of all that country's policies.
Right.
So by that same token, someone could say, oh, you're a member of the United States. Surely you must support abortion. surely you must support the entire Rainbow Jihad. And I'd be like, no, actually, I'm trying to fight against it. Like, so,
right.
why do you just
Totally.
assume I'm in favor of all this garbage, you know?
And it reminds me too, like Post Malone and Morgan Wallen released a song today. It's like a fun little country pop song. And on the cover,
Who did?
Josh,
Thank
I
you.
figure you might not know. Morgan Wallen and Post Malone.
Oh,
They're very
I
popular
just didn't hear it. I've heard of, yeah.
with the use. Oh, sorry, I didn't know if you're making a joke.
Think
Anyway.
Hank Williams and Kid Rock.
Dude, I love Kid Rock. But anyway, they had an American flag behind them in the cover art. And one of the top comments was, don't you think having the American flag in that right now is a bit much? They're both American. Like, it's not, it reminds me of what you just said. They're both Americans. And of course, the top comment under it was GFY, basically like go after yourself. And everyone liked it. Like, everyone's just like, that is the dumbest. Like, you have to be ashamed to be an American for something that, like, the government, whatever. It's like, no, you're an American. We're all American under the flag. So I think this dumb precedents were set with Russia specifically. And I know there's also been historical ones, but in my time, when they removed a driver in Formula One racing for being Russian and having ties to whatever, which is kind of hilarious. Like, oh, all of a sudden F1 cares about morality. Like, the whole league is run by oil barons that kill reporters and don't let women speak. So, like, oh, all of a sudden now people are the moral police. Like, come on. I even saw with this guy, racer, Lando Norris, he races for McLaren. He met with Donald Trump in Miami. Donald Trump just shook his hand because he was doing an event there. And people were trying to cancel him because he won his first race ever in Miami after talking to Donald Trump. They're like, wow, his legacy's tainted forever because he met with Donald Trump. It's like, you guys are so hypocritical. The whole league is ran by Saudi oil barons that don't let women speak. Like, it just...
But again, if you're one of the... You know, that's like the whole thing. Like, if you have a notorious background, you want to try to spend money to convince the whole world that you're a really nice guy. That's like Alfred Nobel made a lot of money making dynamite.
It's true.
And so then he's like, that's a terrible legacy. I'll sponsor a peace prize so everyone will think Nobel means peace. Yeah. When in fact you made money blowing the hell out of people.
Dude, that's such a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah. So, yeah, international hypocrites. So I got to say, let the pop singers sing. Summer, want to hear some pop music. All right, that does for the episode. Thanks for coming on, Tinfoil Tom. Appreciate the help. If you want to help us out, you can email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. Leave us a review, like this episode, share us around. If you want to support us, join the Champions Club. Is there a link to the new book, too? catholicvote.org/champions, where you can do that. We just released a new book.
Yeah, it's on our website in the store. We have
our website in the store.
Store, yeah.
Josh, you have
Still waiting for my copies.
And don't forget to send your letters to Dear Josh.
Dear Josh. Yeah, I actually love a Dear Josh section. We should start doing that. If you want to get a take from a mild-mannered man in the Midwest, Dear Josh is where you can do that. So
ask the barbecue dad.
Send me Dear Josh inquiries. We need to push that more. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you're able to enjoy it with some families. Weather's getting nice. Get out there, have fun. We're praying for you. Pray for us. St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and St. Fidelis pray for us. And we will see you guys on Monday. Peace.